Good evening. Good evening. I'm Sam Johnson. I'm an educational facility planner and an architect, and I don't like following the superintendent, Mr. Dynamic Speaker. Is there a way that we can get this center screen on, please? Oh, that's all right. All right. Well, the superintendent had talked about a vision for the community and how schools are an incredibly important part of that vision. So what we're going to talk about is how facilities need to respond to give the to show the effort and the commitment to education that they need to. And we're going to start by going over School Design 101. And what I mean by that is I want us to remember that the way we remember school is not always the way schools have been. I mean, we tend to picture school just exactly as it was as we walk through. But when public education became mandatory, school occurred in one-room schoolhouses, literally in one room. Teachers worked with pairs of students of like abilities, and they moved through at their own pace. As America grew and our economy grew, there was much pressure and much movement to the cities. And one-room schoolhouses couldn't hold those, so the graded elementary school was created. And essentially, the graded elementary school was a collection of one-room schoolhouses, 4 on a floor, 3 floors high. Over time, people decided that there were some subjects that were so specialized, they required specialized spaces. Spaces like science and art. And they decided to serve lunch, cafeteria. They decided to have physical education, so they created gyms. So as our educational program evolved, our building followed. More recently, in 1975, special education became mandatory. So special education spaces now have been created. But that also helps explain why so many special education spaces are seemingly unsuitable. That's because they were mandatory after the school had already been designed and built. And then finally, and most recently, technology is the biggest driver of educational facility change today. So that's a very brief and simplistic overview, but the point that we want to make is that as educational programs change, the facility evolves in response to those changes. You've heard the expression, form follows function. So that's the point we want to make, is that our schools evolve to meet the needs of educators and educational programs and students. So as we travel the Midwest, talking with school districts, this is what educators tell us are the ways in which schooling and education is changing today. I'm not going to go through all of these. This was a presentation put together by one superintendent as she was talking to her community about her thoughts about the future of education. But I will talk about a couple. The upper left hand, interdisciplinary instruction integrated curriculum, is the idea that students tend to retain information when it's developed with, when they develop co-curricular deliveries. For instance, when a math module relates to something in a language arts course, it may make it more real, and some students may remember that better. And the last one is on the lower right, differentiation. Educators tell us that students learn in different ways, and that differentiation is the process of understanding how the students learn in different ways so we can meet them where they are in their education. You know, these things have a fairly profound effect on educational facilities. So what I want to do is take you on a virtual tour, if you wouldn't mind, showing how schools around the nation are evolving to meet the new needs of education. How is form following functions? The pictures that I'm going to show you, by the way, and I want you to make a note of this, are both renovated facilities and new facilities. You won't be able to tell the difference, and that's an important point. So these are the characteristics of 21st century schools. First of all, they're healthy. There is so much research out there that supports that a proper indoor environment, things like moisture control, humidity, temperature control, indoor air quality, ventilation, acoustics, these things have powerful influences on student achievement. So new schools are healthy. They're energy efficient. They consume far less energy because of our need to conserve energy. So what you'll see here is you'll see the two upper lines are the energy consumption of one school for 2 years prior to the retrofit, and the green line is the energy consumption after the retrofit, much lower energy. They're sustainable, meaning that they meet the needs of today without harming the ability of future generations to meet their needs. They have superior lighting. There is no environmental factor that I understand is more significantly tied to student achievement than daylight and natural lighting. They're safe and secure. This probably goes without saying, but students need to be able to feel comfortable and safe in an environment for them to learn effectively. They need to have proper acoustics. There are some studies that show that some students learn or are at a disadvantage simply by their location in a classroom. They need to be technology infused. Again, this is probably not anything new to anybody, but there needs to be ubiquitous access to technology. Technology-based education is certainly here, and it's going to be a big part of our future. They need to be engaging. These schools need to communicate to students that this is an important place, a place that can change your life. They need to be fluid and flexible. They need to rapidly reconfigure to meet the needs of educators as they work to provide the varieties of educational deliveries that are currently in use. They need to be student-centered. I went to one conference where there was a presenter, it was a superintendent, who talked about the design of their new facility that allowed the students to be the architects of their own education. I sort of like that as an architect. They treat teachers as professionals, so this is a collaboration space in a new facility that's just opened up. Actually, it's so new it's not been published yet. This is just a cell phone image of it. The superintendent referenced Decatur, Illinois. This is the new Eisenhower High School in Decatur, Illinois. I'm going to show you some other photos here, but it has transformed the morale in that community. Facilities need to be connected to nature. There are studies that show that students feel more comfortable and relaxed when they have natural views. We need maker spaces, spaces where students can learn to create and to invent, spaces like where architects and artists are trained. Spaces need to be convertible. The one thing that we can tell, the one thing that I can say with confidence is we don't know what will happen 7 years from now. The superintendent talks about how the pendulum swings back and forth in terms of educational reform. So our buildings need to be able to provide enclosed classrooms like this, or open, flexible spaces if the program changes, so that we're future-proofing our facilities. We're allowing them to change over time without requiring expensive retrofits. They need to be collaborative to take advantage of the powerful ways that students learn from one another. They need to have a variety of activity settings. If you go through your schools now, you're going to see that your teachers are not just teaching in classrooms. They've got students in whatever breakout space they can find. They've got them in the halls. They've got them in the stairwells. We need to support what they want to do with a variety of activity settings. This is an information commons for an example. This is Eisenhower High School that I mentioned. The traditional library, if you will, is upstairs. The lower area is a student workspace, but here it's set up for an assembly. There's a stage in the center. And here at the bottom, it's set back up as a student workspace where they can work in teams, and there's sort of a diner effect of the sound. But if they need acoustical isolation, they can go to the adjacent breakout space for that isolation. They need flexible classrooms, rapidly reconfigurable. Flexible classrooms like a science labs where the science lab tables double as both a lab station and a workstation, requiring less square footage. Small group breakout spaces that students can work at with lower levels of adult supervision. Again, this is Eisenhower High School. This is the administrative area overlooking a student commons. This is the media bar where students can pull up with their technology and work together or individually. So I'd like to take you through a couple examples of 21st century schools now that we've gone over some of the basics, some of the characteristics. This is the Lake Bluff Elementary School, Lake Bluff, Illinois, right on Lake Michigan. And what you notice right off the bat when you look at the floor plan is that the classrooms aren't rectangles or squares. It's an L-shaped classroom that creates a variety of zones within the classroom. And this is an idea that a lot of people think is very strong. It provides a lot of opportunities. The library, when we researched with students, they wanted the library to feel like a tree house, so the ceiling is shaped like a tree canopy. And all of this is designed to engage students. You see natural gyms lit with natural light and with daylight sensors so we can turn off our electric lights and just use the free light of the sun. And again, engaging interiors. And multi-purpose interiors. One moment it's a cafeteria, the next it's an activity space. In terms of middle schools, there's the Northeast Junior High in Silvis, Illinois. Again, a nice, safe, secure entrance that provides great access control. but it doesn't feel like an institution. Great flexible classrooms with daylight. Collaboration spaces, again, where students can learn from one another. And great social spaces where students can work, and this can double as both a performance space or as a cafeteria space or actually as an extension of their media resource center. Steve talked about enrichment spaces like this band room. And then finally, I want to talk about 21st Century High Schools. This is a school constructed in Knoxville, Illinois. It's being constructed now. It hasn't been published yet, but it's innovative in terms of its organization. It's a little different in that it's not the departmental organization. It's based on thematic clusters, what we call learning studios, each based on one of the 4 C's that you hear as far as 21st century skills: collaboration, communication, critical thinking and problem solving, and creativity. And so what you can see is that there is learning studios right here. Each learning studio surrounds a collaboration space. So in the critical thinking learning studio, you have math and science and chemistry, and you also have language arts and history, all around a central STEM lab: science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And so that's the collaboration space. So when you're doing a module on bridge construction, you can talk about the math and the engineering that goes into the bridge design. But at the same time, the folks in language arts and social studies can talk about the significance of bridges in history, in language arts, and in social studies. Second floor, some interior renderings of what the facility will look like. And then finally, the STEM lab. This is going to be a really wonderful space that provides for a lot of opportunities for that staff to meet those individual needs of students now and in the future. And so I think that concludes our tour. I am going to turn this over to Mr. Mike Aldenadel, and he'll take you through the rest of the evening.